Hello, I'm Alexandra Sleator, Career Accelerator. So welcome to the second video on influencing people. Last time we discussed the downside of influencing, what happens when we don't get it right. And what happens is disengagement and resistance, and that's what kills off all of our efforts to bring to others great ideas, wonderful proposals, and that's because people have disengaged and then they start in the second stage to resist us. And at the end of that video we ended up on a much more positive note with my recipe for successful influencing, which is find out what people want and then give it to them. So today we're gonna unlock that recipe. We're gonna decode those two ingredients of the recipe for successful influencing. And the way we're gonna do that is by looking at a four-step model, which is called SWAY. So 4 letters for 4 components of the model. And the reason I've called it SWAY simply is because when we are able to persuade people effectively, then we are swaying them to our opinion. We hold some sway over them. So that's how I came up with the name for the model. So let's start by looking at the first letter, S. That's for significance. Okay, so that's the first step in figuring out what people are about before you strategically position your influencing techniques. And in the significance step, what you're doing is finding out what is the person's connection to the issue that you want to influence them about. So that's the micro side of finding out what people want. You want to know if the person is interested in what you want to discuss, in what you want to pitch about, in the issue. You want to find out if it's important for them or not, because clearly you're not going to come onto them with your proposal in the same way, depending on how much it matters to them. So find out what's their interest in the matter, find out their views, if they have some already, so that you can already start engaging with them. It's the warm-up phase, if you will. And another thing to find out is, do they have a need about the issue that you want to influence them about? Because if they do, well, that is going to give you a springboard to construct your proposal, to try and influence them by showing them that you're going to fulfill their need with your idea, your proposal. Now, how do we find out what people, what's going on for people with respect to anything? Well, of course, asking questions. Now, there's an art to asking questions, because what you want is those questions that really open up the dialogue, that really unlock the person's mind for you. So there's more to it than is really possible for me to cover in this short video, but let me give you 2 pointers. You want 2 types of questions in a nutshell. First, questions that clarify. That means questions that dig, that drill down. And then you also want questions that elaborate, so you make sure that you've covered all bases, right? So questions that go down, so to speak, and questions that go more laterally. And the risk really at this stage is one around assumptions, that you assume that you already know what the person wants, that you already know what's in their head, because they've said something that you think means the same thing as what you think, right? So really not just the art of questioning, but the art of really listening and not assuming that the words that someone uses have exactly the same meaning as the one you ascribe when you use those words. So that's the S stage for significance, for understanding what's of interest to the person and if they have a need around the issue. Let's move on to W. W is for the way of being, the way that this person behaves in the world, the way that they think about things, the way they approach things, what's their outlook. There's many different kinds of people, right? So let's just look at very simple examples. You know that there are people who are more the glass half full and then others who are the glass half empty. You know, are these two kinds of individual really going to be receiving a message in the same way? I would suggest not. If you think also of people who are very big picture, or in contrast, people who love details, would it be appropriate to pitch to two people like that in the same way? Is that likely to be effective? Again, I would suggest not. So again here, this is about really listening to what people are saying, to observing them as well, and to decoding their personality style, which of course is going to be quite complex and varied. So when I take clients through the SWAY model, we spend quite a bit of time there to really understand and decode the personality, especially if it's a senior person, you know, and you want to influence them around a very meaningful project where maybe there's quite a bit of money, for example, at stake. So it's important to get it right. So the way stage is one where we'll spend quite a bit of time. So let's resume, and let's now move on to the second element of the recipe for successful influencing, right? So with S and W, what we've done is figure out what the person wants. And of course that could be persons in the plural, right? It's a series of individuals. But if you're going into a committee meeting and you're making a pitch to several attendees, it will do you great service to have figured out, at least to some extent, what these various people who are going to be attending the meeting want, what's their interest, what's their need, how they function, are they more the glass half empty or the glass half full, among other things, so that your proposal can cater to all of these attendees. So now it's time for you to give it to them. To give it to the person, to give it to this meeting full of people. And so the way to do that is start with A, and that's adapt. Of course, you need to adapt your communication. If you're going to pitch to somebody who's big picture, there's no need to bury that person in detail. They will lose the will to live. They will absolutely disengage, and they will start resisting you because you're not talking to them in their own language. Remember the analogy of talking to your dog that I used in the previous video on influencing. They will hear blah 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 and it will make no sense to them. Okay, so adapt your pitch, adapt your remark to the person. If you do that, they will notice that you're talking to them, that you're talking in their own words, and that will create a bond, a rapport there, unconsciously. But they will start listening, they will become receptive to you, they will even like it, and that will create a great basis for you to succeed with your pitch. Now let me conclude with the Y stage, the fourth stage, which is the other element of how you give people what they want. And so Y stands for get ready. Right? It was difficult for me to find a word beginning with Y, so I decided to pick one that finishes with the Y, and that's me being a bit creative. So get ready stage. And this is a stage where, when I work with clients through the model, it's composed of really a multiple of activities, a multiplicity rather of activities around making sure that not only have you adapted your communication, but you've done all the other related activities that are going to make this a very powerful strategy. And let me give you just a few flavors of what that could be. For example, consider the use of a story type of argument rather than an argument which is all about, you know, hard data. Because if you use more of a story type of format, it's likely that you will connect better with the person because the heart will be engaged and not just the mind. So that's one thing that I usually try and explore with my clients, is if that would be, you know, the right way to sort of shift a little bit the way that they want to engage. Another thing is, often in our proposals, we're not particularly clear about what's the end game. Sometimes we have a number of objectives that we pursue, and in fact, if we're not clear to our audiences about what we want from them, that could really dilute our message. So having a sense really clearly understandable to your audience about what is it that you're trying to get from them is crucial. A third element, of course, is questions, and anticipating questions and preparing for questions ahead. But even more, I think interestingly, is trying to organize, especially if you're, you know, if you're pitching it. So there's a presentation you're making, some remarks, you're having a one-on-one chat with somebody. There you can actually try and position what you're saying so that you get the questions that you want back. So that's a really neat trick, if you can master it, to get people to ask you the questions that you want as opposed to the ones you don't. And a fourth element that we work on when we are at the get ready stage is objections, right? And that's absolutely powerful because it's difficult usually, you know, to imagine objections, because after all, we love our own ideas, we've researched them, we're very connected with them, very enthusiastic, and so it's difficult to anticipate objections, and yet objections will come, especially if you haven't done a good job at the preceding stage of S and Y, of finding out what people want and how they function. And so you need, at least in the final stage, to think through objections. But if you've gotten a bit under the skin of your audience by doing S and W correctly, you will see that you will start to be able to imagine objections. And then again, the strategy is, so how do I build objections into my proposal so that I debunk them, so I get rid of them, so proactively. I used to pepper my personal recommendations with objections to try and kill them off before they were launched at me. I even remember I started one day a presentation with the objections, the major one, and that was very, very powerful because I got rid of it from the word go. So dealing with objections is one of the things that we do at the why stage, and that is one of the most constructive elements there. So there you have it, the SWAY model. Four techniques to organize, to prepare how you're going to influence. Now clearly what this tells you is that you can't just go in with all guns blazing. There's some homework, so to speak, to do, some preparation. But if you get it right, you're going to be able to influence and persuade successfully, and you're going to get what you want. And the person or persons that you will have influence will get what they want. It's a win-win situation in that case. And it's positive on so many levels. It's personally satisfying for you. It's good for, of course, your performance at work. It's good for the relationship building at work. So there's no shortage of benefits when you manage to influence successfully, from the very minute or the very tangible to the higher and more big picture kind of benefits. So have a go. Try SWAY, see if you can start applying and see, you know, where you're having trouble, if you have difficulties on applying some of the things I've shared with you. Always in the interest of keeping these videos at a reasonable length, I go through things relatively fast. But anyway, you know where to find me, so by all means do let me know how you get on with SWAY, and either by leaving me a comment on my website, or of course emailing me directly, or whatever other means of communication suits you best. So I'll leave you to ponder and to start practicing SWAY, see if it makes a difference in your work life, but also in personal life as well. And I will look forward to seeing you very soon then, to conclude this series on influencing people by looking at two very tangible examples of how to put SWAY into practice and leveraging that model into the real world. Until then, thank you so much for watching, take good care, and bye-bye.